I have Victoria Nino on today's show. She's the creator of Expecting Anything, a blog where she candidly shares her journey through infertility, IVF, and motherhood through donor egg. And what I'm so excited for you to share about today is you recently published your first book, Our Hearts Match. She's also the founder of Infertility Unfiltered, a platform dedicated to sharing raw, honest stories about infertility without the pressure of a positive outcome. Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show. After years of navigating the emotional and physical challenges of fertility treatments, Victoria turned to writing as a way to process her experiences and connect with others facing similar struggles. Her deeply personal and authentic storytelling resonates with readers, offering a message of hope, resilience, and understanding for those on their own fertility journeys. She lives in Huntington Beach, California with her husband and 2 children and continues to be an advocate for women and families facing the uncertainty of infertility. I'm so excited to have you on. Ever since I met you at one of the first Pregnantish events, I've been looking forward to the day where you can share your story with our listeners and viewers. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I also felt the same way about you when I first met you.
So you shared your personal fertility journey on your blog, Expecting Anything. Would you share your fertility story with us and also what led you to decide to use donor eggs?
Yes, definitely. So I started when I was around 29. And of course, like most people, thought it would happen easily. Years of infertility, years of trying. I jumped into IUI and then IVF, still not working. At this point, I was probably 32-ish. And I finally got a retrieval and only had 2 eggs. And one of those was even like black in color. It was so bad. The other one did not fertilize. And it was around that time, I think I was 33, when my doctor started suggesting donor eggs. And my husband and I were both very much against it. I had very dark thoughts. I was shameful. I thought, I've never met anyone who's done this before. I've never seen it on TV. I've never read a book about it. I thought, how could this baby love me? How could I love this baby? I won't ever be the real mom. I had all these really, really sad, dark thoughts. But I took a step back and I worked through this grief and I kept asking myself, but what's my goal? What's my end goal? And the answer was always to become a mom. It wasn't necessarily to create a carbon copy of myself or to pass on, very specific genetics. That wasn't like why I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be a mom, to have a baby to love and to grow our family. And my doctor at the time was very informed on epigenetics, which at the time for me was a really important thing to learn about because it was a way for me to start connecting with this future baby and this future pregnancy. And she told me stories about other patients who had children who, through egg donation, that resembled their mother quite a bit. And I thought, wow, how is that possible? And so I started researching and learned quite a bit about it. And that was really, I think, what got me over the hump initially. And so we chose an egg donor who looked very much like me, who had a very similar education and talents and interests. My doctor said she even spoke like me and had my same sense of humor. And I thought, okay, wow, this is like all working. And unfortunately, the day before her retrieval, the doctor called me and she's like, I have some good news and some bad news. She said, the good news is she really is like you. The bad news is her eggs are too. And I was like,
Wow.
what do you mean? How? This was my Hail Mary. Like, I finally got to this point. How is this possible? And we still don't know. We don't know why it happened. Poof, all these eggs disappeared. She was down to like 3, I think, which we couldn't afford to try 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's when I really went to a dark place because I was already in a sad place. And then I
Right.
kind of like peaked up a little. And then I was like, okay, this is just it's not meant to be. Like, I'm not meant to be a mom. I'm doomed. I'm cursed. This is my fault. Like, what, spiraled. And so my husband and I took a year off and we were really considering like that being it, just not being a childless family. And I'll never forget, we were in Thailand and I met this like monk in the rain, very like something you'd see on a movie. And he's like doing this thing in the air with like water, holy water or something. And I'm not even a religious person really. And I was just like, I got to go sit with this guy in the rain, and my husband's like, it's pouring. I was like, just let me run. And I'm like running in the rain. I sit with him and he sprinkles the holy water on my head and he hands me these two like orange bracelets and monks don't speak, so he's just like kind of grunting at me. And I'm like, the bracelets, we got to put them on. And so I said to my husband, I was like, we're wearing these bracelets and when we go back to the US, like we got to start over and try again with a new egg donor. And he was like, okay, okay, this feels a little crazy right now, but okay. And so we started all over. We met a new doctor and he's like, Victoria, you won't find your twin. There is no twin. It's you. You're the only one, She said, he said, but you can find someone who you can connect to, and resonate with and find some things that are important to you, but you're not going to find your doppelganger. Like that's just not possible. And he said, but we need to find someone who's healthy and fertile also. So he had some more strict parameters around the egg donor herself and how to qualify her, which I appreciated in the long run, because the first time around, I was just so focused on finding someone just like me. And this time I found someone who had similar heritage. She did have blonde hair, blue eyes, but like we don't look like sisters, maybe third cousins. I don't know. And she had like her favorite movie was my favorite movie, like silly things. And so I was like, okay, we're going to choose her. And she already had 2 children of her own. So we knew she was fertile, so to speak. And she had donated to another family, I think 1 or 2. And so she, thanks to her eggs, we now have my daughter who is 6 years old, who is the love of my life. I usually cry when I talk about her. I'm going to try to reel it in. She's so special. Here we go. And so like now I know like I was meant to be a mom. I was, and it was to her. It was specifically a mom to her. And I had to go through all of this 8 years in total to get there to that moment. And so I tell people like, I'm so glad my eggs didn't work, which I know is like probably cliche being on the Egg Whisperer show.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that this other woman's eggs did because it brought me her.
Yeah.
And our story doesn't stop there. We had 2 more embryos from that donor that I thought, again, false expectations. We're going to have 2 more kids and they're going to be full genetic siblings. Unfortunately, those embryos did not take. I did not get pregnant. I had a random spontaneous pregnancy that happened in the midst of cycling that I miscarried. And then I got a new egg donor again. And that's something I never thought I would do. But my daughter actually was the one, because we couldn't get a hold of the original egg donor. There's a lot of mistakes I made in the process of choosing our relationship or deciding how that would look. So if that's the one thing I guess I would change is like having a more of an open relationship with her and knowing her. And so anyway, she was not able to be located or found. And so we ended up going the frozen egg route with a new egg donor who we got 2 embryos from. And now we have our 18-month-old little boy who is quite the whippersnapper. Very loving, very sweet, but he is full of energy. My husband tells everybody if he were first, she wouldn't be here.
Right. I love that. And I want to bring something up because I've heard you speak about this before, and I think it's something that's really powerful for our listeners to hear you talk about is miscarrying a pregnancy that had your own DNA versus, let's say, transfers that didn't work that were donor egg. Some people would make a false assumption that it would actually hurt more because it was your own DNA. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Definitely. Yeah. I had many people say, gosh, I can't imagine. And it was like all of a sudden this like, how did you do that? How did you finally get pregnant with your own eggs at 42 years old? And like, I can't imagine. And I'm like, to be honest, I kept wanting it just to be done so I could move on with my transfer with my donor egg. Like I was sad, of course, because I lost a baby, right? So sad. But it wasn't like I was more sad. I would actually say I was more sad with the transfers that didn't work. It's hard to explain. It's like, it's a soul connection. It's a spiritual connection. It's the connection that those embryos had to my daughter, that like I was the carrier of these, like I was like a vessel for these lives to come through. So yes, of course I was devastated because I lost a pregnancy, but it wasn't like that baby leveled up more than the others. Absolutely not.
And let's talk about your book. You recently released a children's book titled Our Hearts Match. What was the inspiration of this book? Show it to us. I love that. That's so cool. What a great cover.
So this all inspired by my daughter. We started talking about donor conception the day she was born, even prior when I was pregnant with her. And I had a really hard time. Like I tell people, like that people think, oh, Victoria now she just it's so easy, and I'm like, no, it was not easy. Like the first year of her life, I tried to tell her every single day, and I cried every single time for an entire year. And because I was just talking through, oh, mommy's eggs were broken, and then this lady, and blah blah blah, the doctor, and it wasn't working for us. And I bought a lot of those kids books that had that same doctor story, which is important. It's important, but she didn't really care about the doctor story. She was like interested in dinosaurs. And so I said, I had an idea. I was like, I'm just going to tell a dinosaur story about a T Rex mama and a Brontosaurus baby, because the T Rex hatched a Brontosaurus egg. And so I just started playing around with the story, and she would chime in and add her own little like rendition of it. And then the baby popped out, and yay, it was like mama, and so this story is an inspiration. What she was the inspiration behind it. But really the book, it's following this mother and child throughout their daily lives. And they go to the grocery store and they're sitting down eating lunch, they're having ice cream. And the little girl is saying, Mama, my neck is longer than yours. And she's like, yeah, it is. You can reach things I can't. Isn't that amazing? And she's like noticing their differences. And then she starts to say, Mama, why do I dance like you? Why do I laugh like you? And she's like, oh, that's because we've been dancing together since you were a tiny little egg. And so it's the differences, the similarities. And in the end, the little girl has this realization of like, oh, actually we do match, Mama, because our hearts match. And so it's an important story, because what I've learned through talking with therapists and reading different medical papers, the most important things for kids is to understand how they're different and how they're the same, right? They need both. It can't just be all focused on one or the other. And so this book also showcases how in real life epigenetics, which no book has ever done before either. And it was a book that I thought at one point would never be published, because I pitched so many publishers and they all said it's a really great story, but it's too niche. Not enough people do egg donation or embryo donation, or not enough people. And I'm like, it's not about just this group of people. It's about the world, because everyone needs to see a family like this.
Right.
Kids in wheelchairs don't just buy kids books about kids in wheelchairs. Every family should have books about kids in wheelchairs, right?
Right.
Diversity books, like this is no different. And so it's my mission to normalize. And I feel like we got to start with the kids, because kids, they get it. They're open to it. They're ready, to learn about this. It's the adults that have these,
Right.
like preconceived feelings about all of these things.
And you basically also created Infertility Unfiltered to provide a safe space for people to share their journeys, spread awareness on donor conception and third-party reproduction. What inspired you to launch this platform, and how has it evolved since its inception?
Oh, it's evolved a lot. So it was started in person before COVID. And the reason I started it was because I was in this like mom support group that was very education focused. And I was like, wow, I'm learning so much, but I'm also sitting around crying with a bunch of people that are in the same stage as mine. And I said to the founder, I was like, you need, like, people that are struggling to become moms, they need this kind of thing too. And she goes, I agree. You want to use my space? You should do it. And I was like, I have a 2-month-old baby, but okay, sure, I'll figure it out. And so it was just an in-person thing, and people would come, and we had all these amazing speakers that would come in. And then we went virtual after COVID, and it's now dovetailed. So we have multiple different cohorts, but the ones that I lead are donor conception specific. And there's the donor conception journey, which is for people that are still deciding, or they're like in a transfer cycle, or they're newly pregnant and they're still trying to work through that grief, or how to talk about it, how to feel about it. And then there's the donor conception destination, which is for people that are further along in their pregnancy or parenting. And that's all about supporting the child, like how to talk to the child, how to talk to your parents, how to talk to your friends, how to talk to your kids' teachers. Like, how do you best rally around this child and give them the most support you can? And then we just launched a third one, which is donor conception connections, which is for people that are trying to connect with their child's genetic connection. So the donor, even if they're anonymous, siblings, whether that be through the donor themselves or through other parents that use the same donor. And so there's a lot of like, what's the best practices around reaching out? How do you even like have a relationship with this person? Like, what are the boundaries? So That one I'm personally really excited about because it's something I'm navigating myself right now. And I've already learned so much just when creating the curriculum. But I just felt like people in this niche need very tailored support and education because the education piece is like often overlooked. I spoke on a panel the other day with a bunch of doctors, and the guy goes, genetic grief. I had never thought about it that way. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't like, because to us it's so clear. It's like someone just died. Someone died. Like you just told me I have to use an egg nurse, someone just died. But until you've been through it, it's hard to understand it that way. So that's why the education piece is so important.
And where can listeners and viewers find this platform?
So infertilityunfiltered.com is our website, and on there list all the different series. We have an online community too. People can join if they're not ready to join a series, just to get ongoing support group access and access to other people. And then we have an Instagram, Infertility Unfiltered, as well.
Beautiful. What do you want to share with anyone who's considering egg donation for growing their family?
I would say find other people that have been where you're going, because you can't do it alone. It's not right. It's not fair. You shouldn't have to do it alone. You are grieving. This is a trauma that's happening to you, and you need help. You need support. And that education piece, also, like I said, is super important. And I think once you get the help and you learn more about just the science of it, epigenetics was important to me. Reimagining your family and redefining what family means. I think it's a journey, and you got to go through it, but it can be such a beautiful destination. It can be really hard getting there, but once you're there, you can be like me. I'm so glad my eggs didn't work.
And I'm sure this is something that you hear from other women as well, where the husbands, quote, won't let me use an egg donor.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for those women who have their entire lives wanted to be a mom and they're partnered with someone who, quote unquote, won't let them? What advice do you have for them?
That's a tough one, because I've seen couples break up, sadly, over this, and it breaks my heart, because it's like, you've already been through enough. It's education, because that guy, I can guarantee you, he doesn't know enough about it. And that was my husband, because I got on, even though originally I was against it, I got on board way before he did, because I educated myself. I Google spiraled. I talked to people. I interviewed my doctor, asked her for scenarios. The groups that I lead now, the men come too. And I will tell you, since we made that shift, the people, they're getting through it quicker, because they're like, no, he's here too. We're learning together. Like, they're bringing their mom a lot of times too. Like, I tell them, like, bring your whole family. I don't care. Like, we'll just blessed out Zoom, because this is the village and everybody's got to be on board.
Right.
But I think if you can get him to, I don't know whether he likes podcasts or reads articles or audio, like, he needs to educate, because I think once he can visualize, maybe just hearing from families like mine that are doing it, he might start to get through some, because he's grieving too.
I mean, I've had families where the husband's mom shames the wife, and it's like so unnecessary.
Terrible.
So, I mean, counseling is certainly extremely important.
Yes.
Victoria, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. I share your platform with every single one of my patients, and your Instagram handle with all my patients who are considering egg donation, because I think it's really important for them to know someone who's gone through it and done it with grace and fire and resilience. And now you're teaching so many families out there how it's okay to feel sad, but it's also okay to keep going, especially with two different egg donors. I think that's also something that's okay for people to realize, because I think you've also shared that these are your babies. They're both your children. The DNA being different doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's funny, because I used to worry about that too. Like, even after I'd used one egg donor, I still worried about the second being different. And now that he's here, again, I'm just like, why did I, like, they are brother and sister through and through. They fight, they love each other, they miss each other, they light up in the morning to see each other. Like, they do not have half of each other. They have whole selves of each other. They have the same mom and dad in the same house. They are siblings. So, and they know they're from different egg donors. At least she does. He's young, but he'll figure it out. But she also knows she's not my genetics. So, like, to her, family has already been defined one way with me. And now with him, it's just, oh yeah, well, I have half genetics with him. Okay. You know, we're all family at the end of the day.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Like, if you're going through this and you're having a really hard time, it's okay. I've been there. It is hard. no one says this is easy. I always tell people, like, you don't choose egg donation, it chooses you. And I'm here. Like, if you just need a friend, my DMs are always open. I'm always here to talk you off the ledge or provide support or just a safe place to be sad.
Yeah. And if there are patients of mine, for example, out there who want to be involved and help you with your mission of awareness about egg donation, how can they help?
Oh, I love that question. A lot of our instructors now are former members slash patients. So we're constantly growing, looking for new people to help lead groups, to help rally within our community. Like, I'm doing this big race, this race to end anonymous donation with the donor conceived community. I would love more people to come out and support that. Like, just if you don't know how, like, message me, I will help you, and we'll all just help advocating together.
Well, let me know if you need a sponsor because Freeze and Share will be there. You just let me know.
Yay! Awesome. I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you, Victoria, again for spending time with us and sharing your story with us and all you're doing. I loved reading your book, Victoria. Thank you so much for writing such a thoughtful book for families and children.
Thank you. And thank you for your review too. That meant the world to me.